All right, and welcome back. Welcome back. And last time what we did is we started working on this inventory box, and we got it so that it can open up and close, and then it sets the variables in the correct way. So now this time what we're going to do is we're going to continue working on the inventory box and make it better. So let's go back into our blueprints here. Let's think about what we've got to do. So basically, here's one thing that I changed. So last time you walked into the box, the collision box, and that set the inventory allowed. Let's just take that inventory allowed and inventory allowed. Let's move that up here. So I just tagged it onto the end of the add viewport and the end of move component. So on the open and close, make sure that you have inventory allowed. On the open, it should be true, and on the close, it should be false. Now, also what I did is right on the open, I only want you to be able to open the box one time. So I added a do once right here. And then I dragged off the reset and made a custom event called reset box. And where I called that custom event is right at the end of the open code, or the close code, I'm sorry. At the end of the close code, I called the custom event reset box. So this do once will reset. That way you can open up the inventory box one more time. So that's the changes that I made. What we could do now is we have to figure out a way. So the third person character, here's something that I figured out. So if I press the inventory, just not even being by the box, but I press the X button here, it's gonna try to do the open and close the box. And that's not at all what we want to happen. So let's do another thing here. I'm going to play with something called enumerators and switch on enumerator. Let's pull up the regular items HUD. Now in here, in the HUDs folder, let's right click, go to blueprints and make an enumeration. And this is going to be a way we could switch between two different states. The two different states that we're going to switch between are normal states and inventory state. So we can call this inventory enumerator, enum slash enum underscore enum. Inventory enum underscore enum. Now double click into that and we're going to add two states. So press add enumerator 2 times. For the first one, we're going to call it normal. The second one, we're going to call it inventory active. All right, so now you have two different states, the normal state and the inventory active. And when you switch between these two different states, you can do different things. We need to put this enumerator, save it, and we can close it. But we need to put it on a third person character. So go to your third person character, and go to the variables and press plus sign to add a new variable. And we're going to call this the inventory state. This is going to be called the inventory state. And not a Boolean. What we want is that enum that we just made. So type in enum. And you should see your enum pop up. If you can't find yours, just type in the name of it. Mine's called inventory enum. So now that's plugged in, and I have to press compile and save. Now you see the default value is normal, and we could play around with it and set the state. So now that that's there, what we need to do is in the items HUD, or even in the inventory box, we could set the state. So in the inventory box, let's come in here on the open. Since the inventory is allowed, let's also set the state. So set inventory state. Set inventory state. So when the inventory is allowed, we're going to set it to inventory active, and you can copy and paste that for the close, and then set it to normal. And we're going to have things happening on the normal and on the inventory active. So compile and save. Now that those states are set, we can say what happens during those states. So remember, it will set that state. Let's go to our items HUD. All right, bet. So for this red button here, we want the visibility of it to be visible if we're in a certain state and not visible if we're in a different state. That way, you can't close it if your inventory is not active, right? So all we got to do is go down to visibility and create a binding. On this binding, what we're going to do is we're going to get the third person character. So scroll down and get your as third person character, and then get inventory state. And all we have to do is pull off of inventory state and say switch. And you'll see switch on inventory enum. And that's exactly what we want. So plug that in. Now what happens is it'll say, depending on if it's normal or inventory active, it will do two different things. So on inventory active, we want that red button to be visible. But in all of our normal states, we want it to be hidden. So put hidden on normal, compile, and save. And make sure in your third person character that the inventory state default is on normal. All right, let's test that out to see if it really works, right? It should work. So now when I press play, and I press I can't close the inventory unless I press I again, right? But if I come over here and I open the inventory box, now there's a closed inventory. Now what you want to do so that you can't do some crazy stuff, like you don't want to like bug the game out, let's go to the third person character. And when he does open up his inventory, so inventory toggle, what we need to do is put a branch there so that he can't even open this inventory up. So put a branch before pressed, and as long as inventory allowed is false, then he can open up and close up his inventory. But other than that, he'll have to use the X. So does that make sense? Now we can have this widget right here doing different things because of this enumerator that we just made. So depending on which state it is in, we can change what happens. So let's call this get visibility 0. Let's change the name of that to something else. This will be called switch on, just inventory state. Inventory state. Damn. Visibility. All right, so that lets us know that this is the inventory state visibility. Anytime the inventory state is normal, we're going to have it hidden. Anytime it's visible, we'll have it visible. So if you go back to your designer, then you'll see that any other button that you want to follow that same thing, all you got to do is find the hidden and then change that binding there. But for me, the X is the only one that we're going to do that on. All right, so now that we've got that code in there, what we need to do is make the sell item or the store item button work. So the way we're going to do this is we need to have an inventory box that can hold the items that we have. It needs to have the same items that our player has. So I thought of a couple ways to do this, but the fastest way that I thought that we could do it is create a struct with all of our different items. So here's what we'll do. We're going to create a struct with all of our different items. So go into your third person blueprints folder and right click, and under blueprint, you should see structure. Click on structure, and we're going to say all items underscore struct. So mine's all items underscore S. Now let's click inside of it. Now what we have to do is make a variable for all the different items. So all of our items were integers. So I'm going to start with the rocks. And then I'm just going to make all the items that we have. What is this? Stone knives. Stone axes, torches, all of that stuff. Just add all of yours in here at this point, and I'm gonna cut and come back. Okay, now I've got this struct, and it has every single integer item that I have in my third person character right here. So we're going to save this struct right here. And remember, it's called all items underscore struct. Now what we need to do is add this structure to our third person character. So third person character, actually not even third person character, because we want this to be universal. We want this to be the inventory box and not the character. So what we're going to do is we're going to add it to the third person game mode instead. So let's go to our content, and you should have a third person game mode right beside your third person character. Let's click into that. And right here, what we need to do is we need to make a new variable. So let's make a new variable, and we'll call this all items. And it's not going to be a Boolean. Just search for your all items structure that you made. And here's mine right here. Cool. Compile and save. Now you'll notice that if you saved it, on the right hand side, it shows you the numbers for all of the different items. So this is going to be our inventory. So anything that happens here will just be adding to it and subtracting from the game mode. And that way it'll be persistent no matter which inventory box we go to, because maybe we want to have multiple ones. So we're done there. What we need to do is go back to our items HUD right here. And let's go ahead and let's do one of these. So if you wanted to store an item like a rock, when you click this button, something needs to happen. So down here on clicked, let's press the button on clicked, and we're going to store a rock. So the first thing we need to do is cast to that game mode. So third person game mode. And object is going to be get game mode. All right. Then what you want to do also over here on the blueprints, we have the third person character. So that's also casting to the third person character, but this is just our reference to that. So get that third person character. Now, off the third person character, what we want to do is we want to get rocks, and we want to check and see if it's more than one. So get rocks and see if this greater than or equal to 1. So if they have at least one rock, then they can store this rock. So let's put a branch here. That's going to be our condition. If that's true, then we're going to -1 from rocks. So subtract 1. And then set rocks. So that's from the third person character, set rocks. Okay, so if they have at least one rock, then we can subtract 1 rock and set the rock. So if that's true, boom. Now what we need to do is we need to check or do a current weight function from the third person character. So current weight function. This way it'll set the weight, and we're going to actually have to set the current weight. So set current weight. Boom. All right, now we're not finished yet, because all that did was take 1 from the player. It took 1 from the player, and then it set the weight accordingly. Now we have to do the get all items right here. So from the third person game mode that we originally got, let's actually hook this up right here. But let's, from here, drag it over and say get all items. And that's going to be the structure that we made. And we're also going to drag one off that says set all items. All right, so we're going to be playing with both of those two. But what we need to do is we need to, in this case, we're playing with a rock. So this is our inventory. We need to add 1 to the rocks. So on the get all items, right click it and say split structure, and on the set all items, split the structure. Now, all you have to do is from the rocks, +1, and then hook that up into rocks. And then just hook everything else right on up, because you're not adding anything else to anything, so it should stay the same. It shouldn't be at 0. So make sure you hook it all the way up. Okay. And now what this will do is it'll add 1 to the inventory. And now you've set the inventory, so we've got to bring that right there. And this should be the code for the whole inventory now. So what happens again is that, let's go over it real quick. When they press the button, it's going to cast the third person game mode, and it's going to cast the third person character. It's going to get rocks and see if it's more than 1. If it is more than 1, it's going to subtract 1 from rocks and set rocks. Then it's going to do a current weight function to handle the weight. Then it's going to set the current weight. Then what's going to happen is it's going to set the inventory to +1 rocks. Perfect. So now the last thing that we need to do to make sure that this works is, let's go to our HUD and store item right here. This word, store item, let's bind this word to something. So we're going to create a new binding here. And what we're going to do is get that game mode. So third person game mode. And objects is going to be get game mode. And what's going to happen is we need to see how many rocks they have. So because this is the inventory, we want it to display that. So watch this. On the pink, what we're going to do is drag off and say format text. And we're going to say store item. And then do a parentheses, and then do a curly bracket and say rocks. And then in curly bracket and in the parentheses. That way you can store the item rocks. So now we need to get all items. And split that open. And just plug in rocks to rocks. And there we go. So now on this button, what it should say is store items, and then it should have a parentheses and tell us what's how much is stored there. So let's test all of that out to make sure it works. And yes, I did add a little light into this room because the darkness was killing me. All right, cool. So if I press E, it opens up that, and look, I can store rocks. Right now I have 0 stored. Let's go collect some rocks so that we can actually store these items and just actually test this whole item system out. We want to test the weight out too, remember that. So let's pick up 1 rock, 2 rocks. That should be enough sample material, right? All right. Oh, there's some more rocks. There's another one. Get that one, and 4. Oh, 3 rocks, fine. So look, check the weight. His weight is 6 because each rock is 2 pounds. So let's go back to our inventory box. Open that up. Let's store a rock. So now it took 1 away from the player, added 1 to the inventory box, right? Now let's check and see if the weight did anything. So we should have 4 weight now, and everything is working perfect. So now you can store items in your inventory box. And I think that we can end the episode here because it is getting long, and we'll just do a part 3, where part 3 is we'll build the inventory box just like we built the bed. So we're almost done with the inventory box. After that, what we're going to do is we're going to learn how to build this trophy case so that you can go and collect these collectible items all over the world. And every time you collect one, it'll go into your trophy case. So stay tuned. We got some cool videos coming up. But I hope you learned something in this one. I will holla at y'all in the next one. Peace.
Run to the money, on my feet, don't fail. The DA and the judge wanna do their best to jail. I done turned it all.